September the 24th, 2022. Guys, another quick video. We've got a 6 o'clock update in, 5 p.m. Eastern. But it shows now that we're going to have a Cat 4 hurricane coming into the Gulf of Mexico. And notice the other couple changes here, but it's a Cat 3 before it leaves the Caribbean. Here it is now. It's about to be a 60-mile-per-hour storm by 2 a.m. tonight. They're saying that it's 45-mile-per-hour sustained winds. 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon, 70-mile-per-hour storm turning into a Cat 1, then a Cat 2, and then Monday by 2 p.m., 110-mile-an-hour Cat 3. By Tuesday, at 2 o'clock a.m., that's, at night, coming off the west coast of Cuba, is a Cat 4 at 125 mile per hour. And then you've got a Tuesday at 2 p.m., Cat 4, and these things always do this. They will show, as the storm comes ashore, what the strength is, as basically half of the storm is on shore. But just like with Michael, they called it a 4 coming in, and then it ended up being a Cat 5 when they surveyed the damage and let the right people look at it. But again, it's showing impact here Thursday, 2 p.m. Now, again, this is the latest information out there. It's moving west at 16 miles an hour, which is fast. We're going to look at the latest satellite images, and you'll see that this storm is getting large and it's shaping up into a strong storm. Now, again, strengthening very quickly to a Cat 3. This is Monday afternoon, 2 p.m. That's not long away. So all of you folks that are in Cuba and in the islands just south of there, pay very close attention to this. You're about to get hit by the bad side of a Cat 3, which is approaching a Cat 4 storm just as it passes. So you're going to be in what one of the commenters said in the video an hour or so ago, that rapid intensification is going to happen because of the temperature of the water. So now we're dealing with anything between Katrina, Ivan, Michael. It goes on and on what this could shape into. Not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make all of you guys that are, especially along the coastline, very aware that by Monday, this thing's going to be a Cat 3. You think the grocery stores and gas stations and all are not going to be full? And again, Cuba, by Monday at 2 p.m., you're going to be facing a Cat 3 110 just offshore and getting being right in the middle of rapid intensification of 15 miles an hour up to that Cat 4. So it thing is not slowing down at all. Now, let me say this about this chart. They have moved the chart slightly west here, and I'll point that out. What they do, most of you know this, is this does not represent the size of the storm, the cone out here. This represents the possible tracks. This is what they're calling the center of the tracks, but it is not. I'm going to show you the latest spaghetti models. This thing, what they should start doing, and I don't have the ability to really change anything, but this one side of this line could be shaded different. Like you've got this light yellow, and to the left of this center line, this should be shaded darker. If any of you guys ever listen. Now, that's in the weather, or in the weather departments. And you'll see why when I point out the spaghetti models, because even though there's a possibility, there's only a couple models that get anywhere close to coming back into Central Florida. Let's take a look at those. And you'll see what I mean. There's really only a couple models that are usually not very close until the last day or so to impact, that come into that far south, and that's Tampa. And then really nothing all the way up into Apalachicola, somewhere in that area. But the big boys, the Canadian models, the Navy model, they're right in this line right here. Canadian model sitting right over, possibly right between Pensacola and Fort Walton, according to this map, right in that area as far as center. And Navy models over here is the furthest west, and it's crossing in the eastern side of Mobile Bay. Mobile Bay, guys. That's center, and we know they're going to change, and you know everything to the right of these lines is where you're going to have the highest tides, highest storm surges, highest winds, highest probability of tornadoes and waterspouts. And one other thing that I don't know if anybody's talking about it on the mainstream weather or not, is they're going to be shutting down oil rigs real quick. And when they do that, it always creates a shortage. Temporary, you have some refineries shut down, you have a price increase, and because of demand, people are going to be filling up the cars, and it always happens that way, so be prepared for that. And let's watch the stock market real close, guys. They had a very bad week, another very bad week. They've lost everything in, I think, the S&P since Biden came into office. It's gotten that bad, and all the big money people that run the banks and those things, they're talking about one of the worst depressions ever to hit. All you got to do is look for the information. So we got a lot coming on us, and you know that in the video that I did when I was on Paul Bigley's show 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was Sunday night. I don't know what he titled it, but we were talking about starting tomorrow, the 25th, begins the High Holy Days. And they always correspond to the Great Depression, the other financial collapses, going back a couple hundred years, if not further than that. And there were other factors, too, that they were talking about. And they are all, it was about 4 or 5 factors, and they're all coming together in the next 2 weeks. And I still don't know, and I had the question posed to me that about one of the German politicians said that starting today would be a day that everyone would remember where they were at. And I just saw that headlines, and then I saw some people commenting about it in my comments, but I really don't know what that was about. But that's today. And what, will we see something? Guys, all of the financial indications are panic. Powell's raising rates. Look at CNBC. Look at Zero Hedge. Look at some of those financial indicators. Now, on CNBC, the articles, they're very one-sided. But you can see the stock market, the changes. That's why I watch that. But it's sickening to try to read the articles because, again, how one-sided they are. Now, let's take a look at satellite images over the Caribbean while we still have some sunlight. And just today's imaging, I can see a big difference from yesterday as again, you see the sun setting in the east. You're starting to see things wrap up. We're going to look at the infrared images also and tighten up, and the whole thing is tightening up. No longer are the storms out in front of the center of circulation. Notice that. It's south of Cuba. Look at how wide it is. All the way from the tip of, would be the eastern tip of Cuba, the southeastern tip, all the way down into South America. This thing's big, and it's going to be fast, and it's going to be powerful. And you're seeing cycling going on now. It's going to get a little cooler. We got cooler weather coming in. They're talking about next week here in central Mississippi being in the 80s, and that's fine with me. But this thing, you can see now that the storms in the red and black areas are rotating around the center. That's very important. That's for strengthening rapid intensification again. That's what they're watching, and that's what we're watching. You are. And again, from Jamaica, you're getting storms now out there. Check that out. But it looks like the strongest part of the storm is going to miss you. You're still going to get some, depending on what where your tides are now going into tonight, things like that. But then you may get some throw-up storms. So be aware that you could lose some power. But it looks like you're going to miss the brunt of this. Now, the western tip of Cuba, you're not. And if I were living on the western tip of Cuba, I would be making plans to move. And if I was on the eastern tip of the Yucatan, because this thing does have a westward movement as the models change, that's got to do with the high and low pressures. But again, This thing is nothing to play with, guys, and it's still, they're saying 45 miles an hour, sustained winds. But you can see that it's strengthening very quickly. You can tell by both satellite images. Now I want to show you something that I forgot to put in the other video. Now this was updated just about 30 minutes ago, so you can see where the storm is now. It's north of Halifax, it's west of St. John's, and the path is going to cross right here. You know, the last video, nearly 500,000 people had their power knocked out. Now right in the center, you have the Navy model in purple and the Canadian model here. So pretty much center of this right now, and you don't have a whole lot of time for this models to change. So what is that telling you? That if the Navy and Canadian models are tracking this thing here, then everything on this side is going to take the brunt of the winds that are left. We're talking about 85 to 75 mile per hour winds. So pay attention to that. Then the storm's going to continue to move up and get further north. The models will change somewhat as it gets further, but and it's going to be a lot less intense by that point. But tonight, guys, again, you would be northwest of St. John's. Check that out. And right now it's offshore, and it still has a lot of punch. It's a Cat 1 hurricane basically, so keep your eyes on that. Don't know what kind of situation you're in these areas with your power, so maybe you have some backup. Whatever you do, stay away from the ocean right now. There were videos up on Twitter, and I put a link to that Zero Hedge article that had a bunch of different Twitter links of videos, and the people were catching it. The houses were washing into the bay and things like that. No power, so overnight you're going to be going through some high winds, guys. So if you got friends in that area, again, try to check on them. It'd be a good thing to do it. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.